Quigley in 5, underwater in the yellow lane.
Jazz Carling of Great Britain.
Quigley goes through. The silver to Jazz Carling. Wonderful silver medal for Great Britain.
Welcome to the Honest Athletes podcast with
Lauren Quigley
and Jazz Carling.
Episode 2. Welcome back, Jazz. We are ready to go. We've got a great topic for today's podcast, but just before we start, I'd love to just say thank you really to everyone that listened to episode 1 and has come back for episode 2. We really appreciate it, and we hope that you enjoy future episodes. And yeah, today's episode is going to be life after sport, life after professional sport, decisions to finish sport, to finish swimming, just cover the topics surrounding that. Because it's a tough time for every single swimmer or athlete to go through, and to decide to finish and to give up something you've probably done most of your life. And so I'm going to just go straight in with Jazz here and just ask Jazz, why did you decide to retire or quit?
Yeah, I think it's funny because when you speak to everyone, say away from swimming or sport, and you say, oh yeah, I retired from swimming at 28, and they're like, you retired? Because it's like retired is normally seen as, I don't know, you retire from work, and it's at that older age. And so when you say, oh, I retired at 28, everyone's like, but that's so young, or they don't quite understand what retiring from sport is. But that's the term that we use in competitive sport to say, I guess, giving up, stopping, finishing. But I retired.
Sorry, Jazz, just to quickly interject, and I'm not asking you to answer this question, but it's just a question for everyone listening and something that I've thought about, and I'm sure you have. It's people use different words: quit, retire, gave up. And it's interesting because what qualifies people to be able to say they retired, or for people to not feel like they can say retired? You know, that's always a really interesting topic that I battle with in my head. But please continue. I apologize for interjecting there.
I think retired, finish, stop. I don't like the word give up. I don't like that saying when people say, oh, I'm giving up. I don't really like that, because I feel like you've actually dedicated a lot of time, a lot of effort and a lot of energy to something, and you're not giving up. You've given an amazing go, and you're actually moving on to a new chapter, a new start. So I really don't like the word giving up. But so retired, I guess, is just a bit softer, or stopping or finishing, because I think just moving on to a new chapter, I guess. Yeah, for me, retiring at the ripe old age of 28, it was seen as, I guess, in swimming terms, 28 is seen as on the older end. Not so much now. I think people are actually seem to be looking after their bodies, listening to older athletes, and they're actually learning a lot more about how to lengthen people's career and doing the things inside and outside of the pool to make people's careers even longer. But after Rio, coming away with 2 silvers in the 400 and 800 meters, I really wanted to give open water a go. So I kind of had a bit of a transition into trying a few open water races, and raced at quite a few World Cups and the European Championships. And I guess for me, I really wanted to try open water. It was something that I'd wanted to give a go, and I wanted to stop the sport or walk away from the sport knowing that I'd actually given it a shot. Everyone had always said to me, your turns are awful, they're not great. So I guess swimming for 2 hours with no turns and open water is actually, I guess, suited me maybe a bit more. But going from swimming for 4 minutes and 8 minutes in the pool to swimming for 2 hours and all that kind of stuff. But it was a big transition for me, but it was definitely something that I wanted to try and give a go. For me, I actually loved, I love it now, open water swimming. I love it. Being outside, and the distance, actually doing 10 kilometers didn't actually bother me. It was more so the fact that I really struggled swimming in a pack, someone tapping your toes for 2 hours, elbows in the ribs, punches, all kinds of stuff, which the physical side didn't really suit me. But I really wanted to give it a go, and managed to come away with a few events and performed okay, but everyone kept saying you'll learn every single race. But in 2018, I went to a World Cup and it was in China. And that was actually, it turns out that it was my final swim. But you arrive at the competition like a few days before to check out the venue and all that kind of stuff, deal with a bit of jet lag. And arrived in China and I must have eaten something. Didn't go down well. Had a very upset stomach. And this was obviously 2 days before I'm due to swim a 10-kilometer swim. It was in September, so very early on in the season. And I was like, felt very weak, but I thought, you know what? I'm here. I may as well give it a go. And obviously, it's not nice having a sickness bug. Not comfortable at all. But what else was I going to do? In China, there wasn't much else to do. But I raced and I got it to about halfway through. I think it was 5K. And I actually had to hold my hand up and say, I can't carry on. My stomach was cramping. I felt like I had no energy. And I kind of finished that day. And I think for me, that was like the light bulb moment where it was like, I've had enough. Like, I didn't want to keep going through it. I felt like I'd achieved everything I'd wanted to in the sport. And what more could the sport bring to me or give to me? And I just felt ready. I think just that moment, and when I thought, I'm away, I'm not doing very well, I'm not well, I can't finish my race, like I've got a sickness bug. And the thought of actually being able to do another 2 years of training, and would I be able to learn the sport so quickly in 2 years? And for me, it was just like ping, and I felt like I was done. Yeah. Which for me, it actually felt like quite a nice decision. I mean, it was a light bulb moment, and don't get me wrong, it took me a few weeks to kind of come to terms with it and to actually think, oh, am I? But that was the moment when I thought, you know what, I want to be healthy. I want to have a bit more of a life. And that was for me, probably the kind of turning moment for me, that I was like, I'm ready for a new chapter, a new life. But I guess for some people, they don't have the choice. So
yes,
for me, I was very lucky to actually feel like I was in control of that decision. What about you, Quigley? How did you come to your decision about it all?
Well, I will get to me in a minute, but I'm sure the people listening have a lot of questions just from listening to that story. And one that jumps to mind for me is that I'd love to ask you is, did you feel like you had retired maybe before that? Because obviously you sort of retired from the pool and then you went into open water. And I don't mean retired before that. I mean, was there a part of you that had retired going from one event to the other? And what was that like? Because I didn't do that. I didn't sort of switch to open water or anything like that. And I know a lot of people do. And so it's really interesting for me to understand, or to just listen to you on how you actually felt going into open water. Were you still like in full athlete, Olympics, that kind of mode? Or were you like, this is fun and I enjoy this because it's not the pool and I don't mind too much on how I do? Does that make sense? I don't know. Am I making...
Yeah, that makes sense. I think for me, I guess my life training wise didn't really change that much. I was still doing hours and hours of training in the pool. I was still doing all the stuff on land. I still had all those kind of bits that I would normally be doing as a full-time athlete. I guess, did a part of me after winning 2 silver medals in Rio think, oh, I've achieved everything I've wanted to? Of course, because Rio was in the back of my mind for a long time, especially after missing out on the London Olympics. Rio was in the back of my mind, and it kind of felt like the end goal. To try and look to then think, oh, another 4 years, that just wasn't in my mind. So yeah, I guess a part of me did think I'd achieved that in the pool, and I was content. I was happy that I had come away with 2 silver medals. And yeah, I guess it did give me that opportunity and a bit of time to think, oh, I can try out open water. But in terms of the actual lifestyle, still committing myself to doing lots of hours of training. I would do 12 kilometre sessions in the open water facility near me. So I was still doing a lot of training and still living that athlete lifestyle. It wasn't like I'd switched off from that. But I guess in terms of the pool, yeah, I'd achieved everything I'd wanted to. So it kind of felt like the pool stuff, it was the right time. And managed to win a medal at every single international competition. So it kind of felt like I'd achieved everything. And I really do put my hands up and applaud the athletes that go on Olympics after Olympics, winning medals, winning gold medals, Olympics after Olympics. Because for me, it was, I guess, because it had been in my mind and I'd waited to the age of 25 to actually go to an Olympics. I guess I did have part of me that was like, oh, you can relax. I've done what I dreamt of as a youngster.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's really interesting. And I really feel like I could just ask you questions on this for this whole podcast. In terms of my retirement, finishing swimming, I never really know what word to use. I could have very easily retired in 2016 at the Olympic trials. I'd got to a point, and I'm sure we'll have a podcast on this, but that was a big point in my life where I got to a point where I hated swimming, and I'd always loved swimming and I hated it. And I remember being at the Olympic trials and not making the team, and everyone, it's funny because everyone who I knew on poolside, who I'd normally have a laugh with, just was ignoring me, didn't want to come over to me, didn't want to talk to me, and it felt like someone had died, like no one wanted to come near me, because they didn't know what to say. And it's no one's fault, it's just how everyone reacts to certain situations. And yeah, I just hated it. We're in Glasgow. I wanted to get as far away from there as possible. And I never wanted to look at a swimming pool again. And then that was a point in my career where I very easily could have retired. And so yeah, I spent 3 months in my room depressed. I didn't come out of my room, nothing. And that's where a lot of people and a lot of swimmers, I think, do quit. They quit at a point where they hate it and they loathe it and they don't, and that could have very easily been me. Now, lucky for me, I had great family and people around me to pull me out of that and say, don't finish hating it like that. You don't want to finish like that. You've loved it all your life. It's not a journey you want to end in such a sour way and just get as far away from it as possible. So I came out of that and I moved to Liverpool. I had a coach called Mike Roberts, and our plan was to love the sport again. It wasn't to be Olympic champion. It wasn't to be a world beater. It was just to love it again, learn to love swimming again. And I did exactly that. And my last race was December 2017 in Britain, and I knew it was coming, and I decided before I went for the race. It was the 50 back. I raced it. I thought I was going to be dead emotional at the end. I thought I'd be crying. I touched the wall. I actually won the race. It was a close race, won the race, got out, and just was like, yeah, that's it, great. Looked up at mum and dad, it was all good. Then I walked round the pool and I saw Hannah Miley and burst into tears. and just realised at that moment that, that was it. And even though I loved it, it was time. And for me, I never got the fire back to race. So I love swimming again, but I never got the fire back. But the loving swimming again for me was such a massive win to finish on loving it. And so, yeah, that was me. That was my last race in Great Britain, racing the British girls. And I then later went to Lanzarote. And this is why I don't know whether to use the word, I suppose, retire, yes, quit. I don't know, because I then went to race for Palma, Mallorca, even though I was living in Lanzarote. It doesn't make sense. Don't ask why. And I raced on the Spanish scene for a year and a half and absolutely loved it. And again, wasn't trying to be world beater, just was loving it and loving the team I was around and the coach that I had, Robin Brew. And yeah, it was just fun then. It was fun. And so I don't like I've said multiple times, I don't like to use the word retire. I just think in that period, I switched roles in swimming. So I wasn't the athlete anymore. I wanted to instead of everyone lifting me up around me, I wanted to be lifting other athletes up then. And again, that's where everything's come from now, the mentoring and stuff. But yeah, it was a period of like a few years for me. I couldn't fully let go because I did love it. And so it was just figuring out, and I'm still figuring out, you know, what I'm doing and stuff like that. And I'm not saying I'm still racing, absolutely not, no. But yeah, I don't think I ever will fully, you know, 100% quit. I'll always be in the pool and keeping fit and everything. So, and I think you're the same, but with open water.
Yeah. And as we said about the word, what do you call it? And I've often said, and people have said, do you still swim? And I said, well, I've retired from competitive swimming, because for me, I'm like, I don't think I will ever race a pool swimming competition or a 400 and 800 meters. There's still time for me to get a best time in the 100 meters breaststroke and 200 meters. No, I'm joking. But,
she's not though, guys. She's not.
Yeah. No, I do say I've retired from competitive swimming because I'm not retired from swimming. Mm-hmm. I still love to swim now. And that's actually a funny thing, because even at the end of my swimming career, I had got to the point I wasn't enjoying it anymore, and I was like a bit done, a bit over it all. And as you say, I think swimmers, athletes do go through phases, and I guess for me, I had decided that I was retiring, but I'd had enough, and there was a lot of changes that happened at the Bath National Centre after the Rio Olympics. So it was a lot of new staff. It was a lot of changes that had like worked really well in the lead up to the Olympics, and there was just a lot going on. And I think I just felt like now's the time to live my life, enjoy myself. And I don't think I got in a pool, I think because I came and joined you in Lanzarote the January, and that was like, I hadn't swam for like 3 or 4 months. So, and even then it was like slowly building back in, and I still don't think I quite had the love for it even then. And it took me probably a good year, maybe a bit longer, to actually start enjoying it again. And for me, I do probably enjoy open water swimming now more than swimming in a pool, unless the pool was outside and we're in a nice warm location, sun on my back.
Yeah.
But overall, for me, I get more enjoyment now out of open water. I think it's mainly because I guess it being in a pool, you know, I always look at the score, like the clock, to see what pace I'm going. And I would always compare to how I felt before, my times, things like that, what turnaround times I'm going off. And whereas open water, even though this summer was actually probably the first summer, I think because of lockdown and everything and not being able to swim, it was actually the first time I was getting in with my friend, and we would come out and we were like, what pace did we go for that 4.5 kilometers? And each week we would get quite competitive about trying to do it faster and all this kind of stuff. So that was probably the first time I've actually been pushing myself and got a bit more competitive with it. But that's obviously taken a good couple of years to get over all that.
Yeah, and things take time. You know, in swimming, it's always the next event. What's the next event? What's the next event? And one thing I wish I'd have done was maybe take my time with things a bit more and just like enjoy the celebration of one event and then move on. And you know, it's always a rush. Now, this is something I really want to listen to, because I don't know this story. And my retirement, I obviously spoke to my family, and we knew it was coming, and it was just quite a smooth transition because it took so long, over a few years. But your coach, Dave McNulty, Nutty, I absolutely love Nutty, and I'd love to hear, because you said you'd love to share, of how you told Nutty, or what the discussion was like. So please take it away.
Well, yeah, I'd worked with Dave since 2014, and that would be a whole other story, our relationship, and how we built such a strong, we had to, because at first we did not get along. When I first moved, we weren't getting along at all.
That I did not know.
Banging heads, but
now we'll get into that another time.
Yeah, that is for a whole other time. Yeah. But I got back from China, and I guess in my head I felt like it was done, and I wanted to be able to tell him first. And I felt like he was the person I wanted to talk to about it. And so we went, and I said, can we go for a coffee at the University of Bath where we train, but in the sports cafe. And I remember we were sat outside. It was a really nice sunny day, and I said, "Yeah, Dave, like I think I'm done." And to be honest, he has always been very much with the coach that if he thinks it's the right time for someone and to hang up the goggles, then he will say to you or he will support you. And I guess he was kind of on that journey with me with the open water, but we'd gone through Rio together, and even the come down of coming back from an Olympics was actually, well, again, a whole other story. And we'd gone through that kind of come down together and experienced the lows of coming off an Olympics and a successful Olympics. And we'd both gone through that journey together. And he just supported me and said, you know what's right, and I'll support you through it. And he said to me, go and have a few weeks. He said, I want you to just have a few weeks to just really kind of sit on the decision, make sure it's the right one for you, and that that you're ready for it, and you can start kind of then planning and getting things in place. And so I was like, okay. And I didn't really get upset. I wasn't emotional or anything. It just felt like the right time. When you just feel like you just want to chill, like I want to be healthy. I want some sleep. I don't want to be tired. I just felt like I was like, I guess like a holiday kind of.
I love how you say, Jazz, I want to be healthy. Can you just elaborate on that? Because I suppose I understand as an athlete, you put yourself through, stress every single day, your body, physical, mental stress. Is that what you mean? Like you just want to chill out and have a bit more of like a...
Yeah, that year, well, in 2018, I actually got back from the Commonwealth Games and I had pneumonia. So I was in hospital, really unwell. And a lot of my career actually struggled with quite a few different illnesses, glandular fever, a lot of tonsillitis and different things. And illness over injury. I didn't really have many injuries in my career, but the illness was something that, I guess, being a distance athlete, I was ill quite a lot. So, when you just feel like you just want to be healthy and not ill and all that kind of thing. So that was me, like the healthy side of it. So David said, have a few weeks. He said, I'll let the head coaches and people know, like the British Swimming, we'll let them know just so they know. But I'll obviously say to them that you've got we want to have you to have a few weeks to just like confirm the decision. And I don't even think I told my mum and dad at this point. So I got home and then I think I told my mum and dad then. And then it was like, then I guess have a bit of time and then start to tell close friends and other family and things like that, or come to terms with the decision. And then the next morning, I actually had a phone call from my agent who looks after events and sponsorship and things like that. And he said, Jazz, like I've just had a phone call from the British Swimming Media Office that you're retiring. What is going on? And like, obviously I hadn't had any time I'd only told my mum and dad and Dave. They were the only people that I'd told.
That's awful.
And so I guess the British Swimming hadn't quite got the message that I was waiting a few weeks just to completely decide whether I wanted to carry on or if that was the right decision. But British Swimming, like they wanted to know when I was going to announce it and all this kind of stuff. And obviously I hadn't even got my head around it all and being ready to even tell people. And then it kind of got out to other people before I was ready to tell people. But, that was just one of those things. And they did still allow me to have a few weeks to come to terms with it myself. But again, I think the first 2-3 weeks, it kind of, again, probably just felt like a holiday. It felt like, a bit of time off and a bit of a luxury because done training for years and years and years, put your feet up, enjoy yourself, have a few late nights that you don't normally have, all those kinds of things, eat a pizza, eat all the junk food. And so it felt like that. And I think it was only then, I guess, that I started to find it a bit more difficult and some other things. But yeah, I think that whole telling people, and I don't know, it's like weird that you tell people, I'm not swimming anymore, or actually saying to people that I'm retiring from sport or things like that, and being able to come to terms with it yourself, but being able to tell everyone else, I think was difficult too. What about you? How did you find telling everyone or telling people that you were retiring?
It's a funny one really, because my last I did a live stream on the Quigley Sport Instagram with my brother. It's called The Core Room, and we went into a bit of my career on that and everything. And a lot of my career, I think, I obviously did it for myself, but a lot of my career, I did it, I think, for my family in a way, to make them proud and stuff like that. And so I found it difficult to actually say it to family at a certain point, just because I felt like I was letting them down. And because, you've said you finished at 28. Well, I was not 28. I was really young, 21, 22 maybe. And so it was difficult to have that conversation, in terms of, I felt like I'd failed in a way, just because I was so young, and the potential was there, I suppose. And, I was doing it not only for myself. And so that was difficult, but my family were nothing but supportive. They wanted to, obviously, like Dave said to you, just make sure, take a couple of weeks just to see how you feel. They obviously wanted to make sure that I was happy with the decision and it was the right one. And they were just supportive. And so it wasn't difficult after the first initial conversations, really. And to be honest, outside of my family and my close friends, it doesn't really matter what anyone thinks. And I think, once they knew, it was all good, really. And I was just ready to crack on with what I had no idea. And we're going to obviously go into that now. But yeah, it was like, then, right, what's the next phase? What's the plan, sort of thing? And
I think sometimes, you can build up. You can build up, I guess, telling your family, or it feels like but at the end of the day, all your family and friends want to do is support you. But at the time, it's like, and I knew deep down, like, my family's going to support me, but it still felt like a big deal telling them that I wasn't going to be swimming anymore. It still felt like quite a big, I guess accepting it myself and coming out and telling everyone else as well.
Yeah, of course. And I think retiring, quitting, whatever you call it, I think it's important through an athlete's career, and I wanted to highlight this today, to remind young athletes and anyone going through the sport, or any sport, that sport is not you, it's something that you do. Because then, I know that we both maybe struggled with it, or I think every single athlete has to deal with the loss of identity for when you finish a sport. In some terms, some people do really well with it, but some people really struggle with it. And it's through your whole career, I think, being reminded this is something you do and you're great at, but it isn't you. So that when you do come to the time when it's time to finish, it's not like, right, okay, well, I'm nothing now because I don't have this sport anymore. It's like, sweet, swimming's done. What's next? Lauren's still here. Lauren's still cracking on, like I just said, with what I don't know, but it's just on to the next thing, and it's not over. I had teammates who finished young in swimming, and so at school they weren't the swimmer anymore, and they'd say to me, "Oh, I'm not the swimmer. I'm just another one of, the students at the school." And it's like, you need to remember that you aren't just the swimmer. You're you, and then you just go and swim. And so it's important, through a career that's highlighted. And so I'd love to hear now how the transition from finishing swimming and what that was like for you, because I'm sure, like everyone, you went through phases of thinking different things, and lots of changes happen, mental, physical. And you mentioned to me yesterday the whole bubble that you're in, the swimming bubble, the teammates that you see every single day, all of a sudden you don't see them. And so what was that like for you?
Yeah, and even as you said, it's finding your identity. It's actually, I find it very difficult, and I think that's why a lot of athletes and things find it difficult, is because your life is dedicated to a lot of your life is dedicated to sport. And I guess from talking from an elite level, when you make it to the elite side of things, and you have to sign a contract to say you won't do dangerous sports, and basically your life, you are wrapped in like bubble wrap, and you are made to perform at the international level, and to that is, I guess, your life is revolved around getting the most out of you in the pool, in the gym, on land, but ultimately it's to win medals and to be at your best at those competitions.
Just to quickly interject, Jazz, did you go to Sierra Nevada? I'm presuming that you did.
Yes.
So we were at altitude training camp. Just from what you've just said, we had to sign something that said we wouldn't do dangerous sports. So we're all up the mountain, looking out the window, watching everyone ski, have a great time, wishing we were able to go on the ski slope, but not allowed. And that's what you're talking about. But please carry on. Sorry to interject again.
Yeah, I say dangerous sports. It's just like, I don't know, going on a jet ski or going skiing, those kinds of things, you know. Mm-hmm. So you do dedicate your life, and it is like I lived it, I breathed it. That was the goal. And at some stages, for me in particular, the turning point after missing out on the London Olympics, and as we said about you with Rio, I went through a very similar dark phase for a few months after missing out on the London Olympics. And again, it took me a few months of not struggling to get out of bed, not wanting to get out of bed, not wanting to do anything, not wanting to look at a pool, and had enough of the sport. And then I did get back in, but once I did get back in, I became quite like OCD and a bit over the top with everything, in terms of I've expected perfection from myself. And that's from in training, always doing extra, doing more. My times, I would never be happy with. I'd do a really great session and I'd be always thinking that should have been better, that should have been quicker, that should have been faster. In terms of like the food and certain things, like sometimes like I wouldn't be happy, like binging out on chocolate. And I guess like as an athlete, you do eat very healthy, but you should be able to enjoy your food as well. And yeah, I just found I was very super critical, very tough on myself. But then on the flip side of it, would I have got the same results if I hadn't have been so hard on myself and pushed myself to the limits? I guess it's very difficult to say. But when you dedicate your whole life, your thoughts is all about wanting to go to Rio and not miss out like I did in London. It does take up a lot of your time, energy, and your mind. And so when, I guess, stepping away from sport, and again, the identity, we did speak about it on the last episode about I've always found it very difficult to tell people that I swim or that I've swam or that I've gone on to the Olympics or Europeans, Commonwealth Games. To talk to people, I've always found it quite difficult. And so I guess stepping away and being able to find, what do I actually enjoy doing? What do I like? Away from that, I've just dedicated my life to go to the Olympics. And luckily for me, I guess it's nice that I can say I did achieve my dreams. Not that it made it any easier coming down after the Olympics, but I think, yeah, what do I like doing? I was sat down and I was like, well, what do I enjoy? What things do I like? And I think that was probably one of the biggest things. And again, as sport, swimming 25 hours a week, gym 4 or 5 hours a week, physio, all those kinds of bits, you find yourself, you've got a lot of time. And what do I want to fill my time with? What's going to make me happy and enjoy myself and things like that? I think that was a very big thing. And yeah, we said about it, you are in a bit of a bubble every single day. You swim normally twice a day on top of that gym, and you're surrounded by a group of athletes, your team that you work with, and that's from physios to sports science, but also all the athletes that are on the same journey with you. And I guess at times you do take it for granted that even though you're all there on the same journey, it's actual social interaction every single day. You turn up and you have a bit of fun in the pool as well. Obviously a lot of hard work, but you've always got that social interaction. You're talking to each other. You've got people around you asking how you are, checking in. And it's like your own social bubble. And so stepping away, and then, I don't know, you do find it quite difficult. And for me, it was like, not hearing from people. And it's not that I did the sport for recognition, but sometimes it would be nice from like the people above and to actually say, oh, thanks for everything you've given for the sport. And that should be at any level, in my opinion, because everyone's like career and what they've given to the sport, I think, should be celebrated. And so at times it can feel like once you're, I guess, not performing, not winning medals and that kind of stuff, that you're off that conveyor belt and people aren't as interested in what you're up to, how you are. And I think that's quite difficult. You go from being in such a bubble of people supporting you to do everything, just to help you improve by the most smallest margins, but then to step away and people didn't want to know how I was. People didn't want to ask how I was feeling and all that kind of stuff. And that was actually quite difficult to take. Did you get any of that at all?
Yeah, no, I completely understand and, agree 100%. I think it's really interesting coming from you, an Olympic silver medalist, who feel like they didn't get, the support that, and you've just said at any level you should get that support. But it's, a lot of people think that the guys right at the top are getting all the support and everyone below is not getting anything. And it's really eye-opening to listen to and to hear that actually all the way through, maybe when people finish, there isn't that support. And I definitely didn't get that support. I didn't even get an email, a call, just to say, well done on your career. And, I hope you have a great, whatever you do afterwards. And if you need us, then please get in touch. And yeah, it's hard to deal with, but the sooner you realize that it is a conveyor belt, that's how it feels, that's what it is, the better, really. And if you have supportive people around you away from national governing bodies and people like that, then you're very lucky, because some people probably really need that support and don't get it, and that's a problem then. And so, I think it needs to change. I think there needs to be more support when people decide to finish, because it is everything. It's your life. It's your absolute life. It takes up everything, your whole mind and everything. And I think to then finish that, you can be in a very vulnerable situation that a lot of athletes need support. And just touching on my own experience mentally since finishing swimming, at times, I've gone from feeling really proud of what I did to resenting the sport because there isn't that support. And sometimes you do, up until Quigley Sport, especially, I'd be like, well, what's swimming actually given me? Great, I can say that I got medals here and there. And, what do I do now? It doesn't, I don't have a degree from it. I don't have a piece of paper that will qualify me for this job or that job. So you're vulnerable, you can feel lost, you can feel confused, unsure, all these emotions that hit you all at once or through the period of finishing. And like I said, up until Quigley Sport, there was times I really resented swimming and thought, I've swam 10 times a week, gym on top, all the stuff, the nutrition, everything. And what have I got from it? And you have got things from it, but sometimes it's hard to see what those things are, for sure.
It is.
Jazz is looking at me and laughing because I think she probably understands or, gets it. But go on, Jazz, what are you going to say?
It is funny when you say like you don't walk away with a degree of sport, because it's true. And people do try and study and come away with a degree as well. And
hats off to those people. Hats off to those people.
Manage it all, because it is tough. But again, like I've known friends, teammates that have walked away from the sport and been very successful in the sport with degrees as well, and tried to go into jobs at like 28, 29. And because they don't have any experience in their field with the degree, they've really struggled to get a job. And it's like, they've been to Olympics, they've won medals internationally, but because they don't have experience in their degree or what they want to do, that people are turning them down. And it is so true that being able to find yourself, and you don't come away with a certificate to say, oh, I've achieved this in sport and this is me. You can obviously tell people and you can talk about it, but I haven't worked in a certain field for X amount of years. I've been swimming, I've been training, I've dedicated my life, which again shows a lot of dedication and motivation and all those determination and all those kinds of things. But I haven't been in a job or been in a role for X amount of time, experience. And people are like, oh, how many years experience? Or we're looking for someone with an experienced role. Well, I'm 30 years old now, and like I've had a couple of jobs here and there along the way. I did some work for Swim Wales when I was younger in the office for competitions, just to try and like get through and obviously support my training.
Yes.
So I used to do a bit of work there in the office. And but in terms of like having a proper job or an official title, a lot of swimmers and athletes will walk away and they don't have experience in certain fields. And even though, they might have a degree or all the academia, they don't have the experience, and that can be quite hard. And that transition from being an athlete into a career, I think there does need to be more support and more help available, because it can be quite a daunting feeling. And you're quite lucky if you manage to make it onto UK Sport Funding. Then normally they do, you can apply for it and they do allow you to have 3 months of funding once you've retired. So that can actually, if you are lucky enough to be on funding, that can actually support you to give you the opportunity to try and look for work in other areas. But I completely get it, because again, not everyone has that opportunity. And to then go out and try and find work, or again, finding the field that you enjoy, that you like and that you're passionate about, when you've spent your whole life dedicating it to a sport and something that you love, is quite difficult to then step away and find yourself in a new role, and for people to want to have you on board when you don't have experience in that field.
Yeah, and I like to put it across and think of it in a way, and I've said this to a few people, I might have even said it on Quigley Sport, it's if you study something, if someone studied something for 15 plus years, like you do as an athlete in your own sport, you'd be, what would you be considered as? I don't know, a genius in it, like if I'm studying maths for 15 plus years, I'm going to be pretty good at maths. There you go. Jazz loves maths. You see, you learn new things every day. But if you study something for that long, you're considered, really high up in that field. And so we've studied a sport for so long, and like you say, you don't get anything that I don't know, gives you a step forward or lifts you up. And I think that's why the athlete mentoring that we're doing is so important, because that's 15 plus years of actually going through something and learning about it every single day. That, all that knowledge and stuff that you've learned from your own experiences that you can now put into someone else is just so important and great, and just a positive thing. We've talked about the mental side of things a lot, and the bubble of teammates, and you are around people every day, and it's a wake up call when you're not forced to be around people, and you don't have that camaraderie or that banter, as people call it, every single day, and that's tough. But what about the physical side of things, the body changes? What have you experienced with that since retiring?
Yeah, for me, I've spoken about it quite a lot, and I do try and talk about it all the time, because I think it's a really important subject and something that we should be able to talk about, and talk about it quite comfortably. But I guess being an athlete, I was used to seeing my body a certain way, and being a distance athlete, very lean. Obviously, being in training and being part of the team, normally we would have like a training weight and a race weight, and you knew where you had to be at certain points in the season to get you ready to be at your best for racing. And for me, I didn't have a problem with my weight, or that was never something that was a huge issue for me. I used to race at a certain weight, and I was naturally quite lean as an athlete. And I guess when step away, and I love food, I still
Tell me about it, sister.
And I think probably the hardest thing is when I was training, a lot of it is about getting in enough food. So it's eating big portions, and it's not always about having a lot of like nice food or flavoursome food. It's about getting in enough fuel that is going to make you better for the next training session, or that's going to help you recover from the session that you've just had. So been very used to very big portions, and love food. And I guess at times, maybe after retiring, it's like food, you can enjoy that, and it's like, oh, I've got this luxury, I can enjoy food, and maybe emotionally a bit eating at times, thinking, oh god, like my life's changed and all that kind of stuff, and not really drinking much as an athlete and coming away and enjoying a few glasses of wine here and there. So complete lifestyle change. And also I didn't really want to do any exercise. I've been told for years and years, this is your weekly plan. This is where you've got to be. Exercise was just part of my week. It was just part of what I did. It wasn't because I would guess I was choosing to be an athlete. I was choosing to do it, but it's just something I did. It's not something that I would go out of my way to, oh, I'm going to go and do this today or that. That was just part of my routine. That's what I did to be the best athlete I could be. So then stepping away and actually thinking, oh, to exercise, like when I'm in charge of it, I've got to be in charge of when I'm exercising, what I'm doing. I actually found that balance very difficult, to do exercise for enjoyment and because I wanted to and all that kind of stuff. Whereas before it was because that was just part of my weekly plan. That was what I did for a living, was sport. So you kind of stepping away. Body changes happened quite quickly, and just changed. And it's difficult. You've been used to seeing yourself a certain way in the mirror, and you think, that's me, that's normal, that's what I like to look like, that's where I'm happy, all that kind of stuff. So to then look in the mirror and my body shape's changed, and I can't quite see the muscle and tone that I used to have in my body. And eating food still, like I love it and enjoy my food, but it's changing. And even now, I think it is still something that I really have found. I feel like now I found quite a good balance between my exercise, my love of exercise. But again, it's still having that I'm probably 8 to 10 kilos heavier on average than I was when I swam.
I'm not going to find out how much heavier I am than when I swam. Let's just put that out there.
And it's not putting a number. I don't often weigh myself now, but like I know that that's where I sit at roughly. And I guess, my body shape is different. And for me, it took some time to accept that I don't have to look like I looked when I swam. I don't have to look lean and in really good shape all the time to feel good about myself and to be confident. And I completely lost my confidence in terms of like, I didn't feel good about myself. I felt insecure. I felt like my clothes, I can't get on some of my clothes. I had to go through my wardrobe and throw out a lot of clothes. Shorts didn't fit, couldn't do the buttons up. Jeans too tight. And a lot of things just felt tighter. They didn't feel comfortable. And so it's like, instead of, you're just looking in the mirror and you can see the changes, which I think you're always more critical of yourself because you will always see the smallest things that probably someone else from the outside wouldn't always see. But when you're putting on clothes, they're too tight, they don't fit, I'm going to have to get rid of those. And I would actually get to the point where I would avoid wearing certain things. I remember saying to my mum, she took a picture of me in my costume for, I think it was for social media or for Speedo or something. And I said, Mum, just get from the hips up. I said, I didn't want like my legs and my hips in it. And I said to her, please just crop it. I didn't want her to take a picture because I felt really insecure and I felt like I didn't want my legs and my hips in a picture. And it's quite sad really that I was so like insecure and not comfortable with how my new body looked. And I guess I didn't want to look like, oh, you know, put on weight after swimming and all that kind of stuff. It's a difficult one. And I think so many people go through it, and that transition and the balance between food, exercise, and just finding that balance and being able to accept the new you and things like that. And it's definitely something that I would love to, talk about more. I'm sure we'll do more things on body image and body confidence, but stepping away, it is a big transition, but I feel like I have now, and it's taken me like 2 years, to get the balance now to actually be acceptable and to embrace my body for what it is now and for what it can do now. And yes, it might not be able to swim really fast in a pool, but it can do a lot of other things that it never used to do before. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. And I'm sure so many people listening, and myself included, can relate to what you're talking about here. And there's some great people out there that I follow on social media, that are really trying to change the game in terms of transitioning out of sport and into just being you and embracing it, and eating the things you like and eating well, and not being too focused on, I need to not eat that because then I'll put weight on and I won't look like I did when I swam. And I go through my phone sometimes and I find pictures that I didn't post when I was swimming because I thought I looked fat in them, and now I think, I'd love to be that size.
Exactly the same.
It's unbelievable, and it's really sad, there's a couple of friends, Rebecca Guy, who I used to train with. She's in the nutrition world, and she's really trying to change the way, even whilst people are swimming, the way people look at nutrition and athletes and stuff like that. And it's great. Another friend, Charlotte, who's doing a fantastic job. And I got a message here that relates to what you've just been talking about. And it says, this is from Charlotte. It says, I see so many athletes who leave sport and then struggle with stuff like appetite and body weight because they're used to having huge energy requirements. And it's so true. You go from eating loads and fueling your body and not really thinking about calories and, how many calories is in this or that. It's literally what's good for me to get in my body so that the next session I can train well, like you've just said. And you go from that to, right, what you sort of, sometimes you think, well, what can I eat? I can't eat that. And it is finding that balance. And again, it's patience, and with you, it takes a long time. And I'm not, if I'm honest athletes, I'm not there yet. I'm still trying to find a balance and between exercise and nutrition and what I eat and all that sort of stuff. So it's about just embracing who you are outside of the sport and being patient with yourself. And yes, at times you'll get frustrated and you'll be down about it, the way you look, and you go through different phases, like you do mentally. And it's just about talking about those things as well. Us opening up now is great for me to talk to you about, and hopefully people listening are getting some benefit from it as well. But yeah, it's a change. Of course it's going to change. You're going from over 20 plus hours of sport a week to whatever you choose to do and whatever your routine allows. And so yeah, it's just about being kind and being patient, I think, to yourself, really.
I think that's the important thing. And even one of my best friends I grew up with when I was younger, and when I was going through that whole kind of transition and body image things, and she said to me, when you wake up in the morning or when you look in the mirror, she said, make sure you leave and just say one positive thing, like about the way you look or your body and things like that. And she'd actually just had a baby at the time, but it really stuck with me that it was like, instead of looking in the mirror and always focusing, I just feel a bit bigger here, or don't look great, and telling yourself all those negative things, just tell yourself and leave with one positive thing. Just say, I'm feeling strong today, or my body can do this. I'm strong enough to do this. And just leave with telling yourself something positive. And again, it's kind of going still on topic, but for me, it was, I guess, being known as a swimmer, being able to do amazing things in the pool, which everyone can push themselves in the pool and things like that. But for me now, especially, I really enjoy testing myself in new environments, in different things. Like, I will never be as fast as I was in my swimming career. I'm never going to go 4 minutes and 1 second and 8 minutes and 15 seconds ever again. But
and anyone listening who's not a swimmer, that is absolutely unbelievable. I would have to have a bungee attached to me and people at each end pulling me down the pool to even get that on freestyle. So
But even though I will never be able to do the things that I did in the pool and be able to swim as quick as I did, I am the strongest I've ever been in the gym. I can do the most pull-ups I've ever done.
I've seen you doing them pull-ups on Instagram. They are insane, Jazz. I look at that and I go, no chance.
I celebrate now being able to do things and my body being able to do certain things. That I cycled London to Paris in 2019, and it was honestly one of the most amazing experiences of my life. And yeah, like, it wasn't to see how quick or how strong I was. It was about getting through it. But it's about, yeah, like, I can push myself and I can do different things. I cycled Ride London, Ride 100. So it's like trying to be able to I really enjoy getting my body to do new things, try out new things, find out new sports, new loves. And even though you may not be, you probably will not be the quickest swimmer that you've ever been anymore. You might not be able to. I actually know some people that come back to the sport and they're quicker because they have just got stronger in different ways. But I don't think that's definitely not going to happen for me.
I was going to say, Jazz, if you did that, I tell you what, I'll be so.
But just try out new things and experience different things. And for me, I've got very much into the gym, into cycling. I know you have too, Quigley. Yeah. And I dabble with running. I don't really enjoy it at times, but it's something that I do want to kind of enjoy. But yeah, find new ways to challenge you and test you, because I think that's one thing that's quite hard, is stepping away from the sport, the challenge, the competitions that you aim for, the training, being able to push yourself, challenge yourself every day. I think that leaves a massive void too. And having that focus and that drive, for me, I always find it really useful now, is set myself little goals and little targets. And last year it was put off due to everything going on in 2020, but I was due to climb 3 peaks, do the 3 peaks challenge in 24 hours. And I was going to cycle Bristol to Bordeaux. And for me, it's about just doing things and seeing what my body can do now for me. And yeah, it won't be able to swim as fast, but it can do a hell of a lot. And just embrace all the new challenges and things that you can do.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think that's so important, to have those challenges and those goals when you do finish. Obviously, allow yourself time, but just have something to focus on as well, in terms of sport, especially if you've been an athlete all your life. You're used to those little goals and stuff like that, and they can be anything, but it's important to have things to look forward to and to strive for. So yeah, that's fantastic. I'm aware that both you and I, Jazz, come from a place of, and I'm going to do quotations with my fingers. So if anyone's on YouTube watching, you can see, but anyone on the podcast, that is what I'm doing. But we come from a place of success in swimming. And so we have medals and stuff like that from major games, and which is fantastic. But there's so many swimmers that put the same time in as that we did, and works incredibly hard, and obviously don't have that to talk about or to celebrate. Obviously they have their own successes, and I want to be very careful with the words I use here, because as you said before, Jazz, every single level should have support and a celebration when they decide to finish. And so I think I got this message and I posted it on social media a few months ago, but I think it's a great way to end this episode. Just to get the perspective of another athlete who maybe didn't make those teams and get those medals. And just from their perspective, they said, I think it's important to let people know it's okay to feel a certain way. I struggled mainly with the fact that I wasn't an Olympian or an amazing GB swimmer. So when I quit, I felt like I couldn't make a big deal out of it or keep talking about it. You kind of just have to quietly accept it and move on. And I always feel a void, like something is missing. And so I think it's important, and I know that Jazz and I both want to make a real point of saying, no matter what medals you got or anything in swimming or in sport, when you do decide to finish, it is so important to celebrate it. It's an amazing achievement to have got up at 4:30, 5:30 in the morning, and to put the dedication and time into the sport. and to give it your all. And, you know, that should be celebrated no matter if that's Olympic champion or you've just won the club champs. And so I want to make that clear. I know Jazz is wanting to say something there. Go for it.
And to me, a medal is not what defines people.
Yes.
Medals aren't what defines people as who they are. And yeah, like, I'm very fortunate, very lucky that I've walked away from the sport and I've had many experiences and managed to stand on top of podiums and things like that and represent Wales and Great Britain. But that doesn't define who I am as a person. And for me, I actually get more out of my swimming career. Looking back, I get more satisfaction about how much I dedicated and challenged myself and pushed myself. And yeah, again, the dedication that it takes to be an athlete. I think every athlete that has worked hard, done those early mornings and brought, like, just given themselves to the sport, I think you should be celebrating that. And like, I'm not saying it, but some people might be, yeah, they might have won medals internationally, but that doesn't make them a great person or a good person. I think what defines you is who you are as a person. And I know some swimmers, I used to know how hard they train, like they would give absolutely everything and never quite made it to maybe how much they deserve, but they were absolutely amazing people, and they would always be the ones cheering everyone on, bringing everyone else up, bringing positivity and being kind and things like that. And for me, I think it's looking back at it of all the things that you actually managed to do and how much you dedicated your life and all the things that you did. That is a lot more than any medal can say. Yeah, people might want to know, people remember, oh, the medals, but you know how much you dedicated yourself and who you are as a person. And I think it's easy to talk about medals and success and all that kind of stuff, but that doesn't mean people are good people and being kind. I think there's a lot to say about being good people and actually being able to lift people up and bring positivity and dedicate yourself. And that doesn't make you any less of a person, any less of a swimmer, any less of an athlete. And that's why I said everyone, when they retire, should be able to celebrate it, should be able to enjoy it, make the most of it. And like, you've dedicated a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of effort, a lot of thought to the sport. And so I believe that everyone should come away and be able to embrace and have that as a success. And just because it might not have come out with medals and all those kinds of things, that doesn't mean that it's any less successful than anyone that has medals. I think it's definitely should be celebrated from all levels.
Absolutely. So anyone listening who has retired or gone through that process, go and buy yourself champagne. Make sure you stay social distance at the supermarket and just have a glass of champagne tonight and celebrate. Jazz and I will be with you on that.
I've got to be over 18. You've got to be over 18.
Oh, over 18. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Sorry. I'm promoting youngsters don't get drunk. Youngsters, don't do that. But yeah, no, absolutely celebrate. I think that is a fantastic way to end this episode. Jazz, thanks for sharing. It's been great.
We could talk about it all day. There's so much.
We could.
And I think we'll still touch on it on certain subjects, because I think there are different things that will come over certain subjects. But yeah, I think that is a huge one. And yeah, again, with our mentoring and things that we're doing, if there is any questions or any more support that we can give in any other way, we're obviously free to be able to support people.
Definitely. And we're hoping to bring on there'll be some experts coming on as well that I'm sure will touch on different topics now and again. So look out for that. Thank you to anyone listening. Find us on Instagram, The Honest Athletes. And if you have any suggestions that you'd like us to talk about, please get in touch. But on a ending note, cheers with my champagne glass. And yeah, we'll see you next Wednesday for the episode 3 of the Honest Athletes podcast.